You've done a course recently with the Open University. Could you tell us a little bit about that course?
Yes, it's been one of the longest running courses with the Open University, and it's the Master of Arts degree in online and distance education. It's been really interesting because the very first year we studied foundations of technology enhanced learning, and the second year we progressed on to look at leadership, agency, and change, and that's been very relevant over the past few years. And then this year, finishing my master's degree with studies in network practice and scholarship and research.
Okay, and obviously fantastic timing for doing a degree in online and distance learning.
Absolutely, it's been a huge help.
Yes, really interested in what you told me in the email about scholarship. So, could you explain a little bit more about sort of what we mean by scholarship and how you're using that in your day-to-day practice, how that actually helps you working in a college?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I started my degree, I always had this perception that scholarship referred to research as an activity that went on behind closed doors in a traditional institution. And what I've found as I've kind of gone through my own learning, that actually it doesn't have to be like that. There are whole communities of practice out there, and there are whole communities of knowledge out there where people are sharing things and sharing practice, sharing research, and all of that has really informed what I'm kind of doing at work at the moment. I mean, there are lots of examples I could give. To start with, people, I mean, we all gather resources and we kind of act almost a bit like curators in some degree. But when you stop and think about it, is that a form of scholarship? Absolutely. Where you create resources, you create examples of good practice, and then you share that with other people. Being involved in things like action research, where you work with groups of students, you identify a problem, and you explore lots of ways of trying to address that. Is that a form of scholarship? Absolutely. I mean, it's been a huge eye opener for me, and it's really made me realise that actually no, scholarship isn't just something that you do in a university, if that makes sense.
That's fascinating, because obviously teaching in a core skills area, I teach maths myself, so I've taught quite a lot of numeracy modules, and there tends to be a perception that that's about as far away from scholarship as you can get in a maths sense, that scholarship is about doing PhDs, but actually scholarships also, as you're saying, is about sharing your kind of day-to-day practice. Have you found that how interesting, for example, if you're doing action research and you're working with a group of students, how do the students respond to that? Do you tell them that you're trying something out that's new? Do you tell them this is a piece of research? Or
well, yes, absolutely. One of the things that I'm kind of in the process of planning at the moment is exploring a project on how students' perceived sense of community impacts on learner retention. So as part of that, there are ethical guidelines out there which I follow, and I think it's good practice to follow that. So there's the ethical framework from the Scottish Educational Research Association, and there are other frameworks from relating to online and open education, which give guidelines as to how that should manifest itself. But I remember sitting in a lecture with Professor Steele from the Open University, and she quoted the kind of long-known sort of proverb that's been in education for years now, about doing things with your students, not to them. So I think in my action research that I'm kind of working on at the moment, I think it's really important to involve them, and involve the students and bring them along with you on that journey. Because it kind of gets them to reflect on, I mean, in my project, it's kind of encouraged them to reflect on how community manifests itself in their learning and how they are supported and how they can support each other and how that manifests in an online environment, or in a hybrid environment, as kind of some colleges are dealing with. So
fantastic. And do you have opportunities once you've done that research then to share that with colleagues, and how does that happen?
Yes, absolutely. Again, coming back to those ethical guidelines, it really informs a lot of my thinking. Where I love to share my work openly. I blog, and I write reflective blogs, I write academic blogs, and I write personal blogs, and I do that regularly. And the ability to share my work openly with colleagues, and more broadly across the industry is a passion of mine. But again, there are challenges that relate to that, and the challenges of addressing, like sort of managing your personal identity, thinking about the organisational identity, before you go to the stage of publishing openly. You know, there are stages that you need to go through, and it's not something you can rush at. Yeah. So that's kind of, that would be my ultimate aim, would be to share with much more broadly with the wider community. But yes, as I say, there are steps that need to be gone through.